All right. I think there's a few more people coming on, but in the meantime, hello and welcome. This is the call to answer all your teacher training questions. So I also have a few questions that people sent in who couldn't be on the call because this is obviously not a good time for Europe and the UK. So I'm going to just give you a very quick intro to the teacher training and then take your personal questions. And then that way, hopefully everything is addressed in one swift call. So I'm going to share with you my screen and I'm going to just show you the different elements of this training. And then we can take it from there and I'll just let you unmute yourself and you can ask questions. So this here is the page that you have seen, of course, right, where all the information is on. And I just wanted to point to this because this is the kind of important thing as far as what the training entails. So essentially, we're training you to become nonlinear movement teachers. And there's a few aspects here. One is for people who want to teach classes freestanding, which I do, as you well know, because you've been to my classes, and which quite a few of our teachers do both online and now again in person. So in the training, you'll actually learn how to teach, and that includes everything from the underpinnings, meaning how did I develop the method, what goes into the method, the different aspects of the nervous system, and the different ways that we're working with the body and the nervous system, teaching philosophy, best practices. You get a lecture on embodiment, you get a lecture on all the barriers to embodiment. You'll get scripts where I've given, or I will give you my very best wording and practices, introductions, how to run classes, a business lecture, all of those kind of things. So you're going to learn the four main nonlinear modalities, and you're going to learn them also by doing them. So this is a very active and very embodied training, which is why it's also suitable for people who want to deepen into their own material. And a lot of people sign up and they just want to do it for their own development and then end up teaching anyway after having been so deeply immersed. But so you will get to experience, and I will teach you and you will participate in those four modalities. You'll also learn how to teach them. And in addition to that, you'll learn how to sequence classes, which modalities go together well. We'll also talk about what to do when you want to use nonlinear in your existing practice, whatever that is. For some people, they're doctors or dentists or therapists, psychiatrists. We have all kinds of people in the more, let's say, medical or psychological field. And then, of course, lots of people who are workshop teachers and who will combine it with their own teaching practice, whatever that is, and will also show you how to do that, what goes together, what would you sequence, what wouldn't you sequence, and things of that nature. You'll have these breakout room experiential sessions where we actually deepen into the experience, and also where you will actively learn how to teach. You will have 12 experiential sessions where I'm actually guiding you in the process. And then in the breakout rooms, we do some adjunct process for deeper embodiment and for your own kind of inquiry as well. We'll have 7 live Q&A sessions where essentially in every module on every day, there's a chance to ask your personal or practice or teaching questions. You'll get scripts, introduction, how to teach on Zoom, how to teach in person, how to set up a room if you're teaching in person, how to use music. You'll get playlists. We'll train you on how to do optimal sound on Zoom and in person so that you can teach a really smooth class by the time you're done with this course. And then I'm going to show you this. We have this really fun online class portal where all the things that you're learning are being stored so you can revisit it and also practice. Also in the portal is a lot of support material, extra resources, and everything you need for the portal. And then there is the classes. You get all the classes I teach for free and for a full 12 months so that you're constantly staying in that conversation with your own body. You'll have 10 live lectures where they're not pre-recorded, so they are taught in reaction to what you bring to the questions, and it's a very dynamic teaching structure. We have a Facebook group for you so that you can connect with your community, which comes in really handy when you start practicing how to teach. People typically group up in time zones and kind of support each other. People post music, people post their personal experiences. It's typically a really nice group. And then you get all kinds of additional material, like I said, playlists, business support. I answer questions in between sessions. So if somebody has a practice question or before the test, we do a kind of a practical testing day. People ask, specific questions, and I will answer them in between modules via video. So that's kind of a very quick overview. You've seen this page, so you know how it looks. There's the first and the second module close together. That's the experiential modules where you get to practice and you get all the underpinnings. Then you have a little bit of a break, and in that break, you're going to actually do the practice and get the practice into your body, which is both beneficial from a teacher standpoint, but also really beneficial for yourself and your own development. And then December 3 and 4 is the module where you will receive script and teaching instruction, and you will practice teaching. And then you have a little bit of time to prepare. And on December 10th is the practical exams where you will actually teach a class. So that's, I think, this particular page I wanted to show you. And then I'm going to show you very briefly I'm going to just have to move this, sorry. I'm going to show you what the portal looks like. So you'll get access to this portal. My computer a bit slow today. It's 47 degrees Celsius, so that's 112 degrees Fahrenheit where I sit right now. Yeah. Yes, it's very, very brutal out there. It's like a furnace. So this is your portal. This is where all the online courses are housed. And it looks something like this. So you have a whole section with all the logistics. You'll find all the time zones, how to get into the Facebook group, your discount codes, all the frequently asked questions about logistics. There's a little portal in here. If you have a personal question that you don't want to ask publicly, there's a direct line to me. So you get support that way as well. And then there's all your Zoom links, everything you need. Then there's a yearbook, which when you sign up, you get the chance to be part of the yearbook, which is kind of fun because then you see the people in the other streams as well. And it's quite nice to have that. And then here you have your course materials, everything that you would ever need, and then some. And then here are all the resources and here are your lectures and Q&As. And then down here is where I answer questions. And then there's a whole bunch of bonus material as well. So anyway, what you saw there is your support material and all the nonlinear material. And I just wanted you to see that. So because a lot of people had questions about that. Now I will take your personal questions. You can just randomly throw them out at me.
I'm wondering about when you're addressing trauma, kind of what do you, I have some background in teaching in trauma sensitive classrooms and setting up trauma sensitive spaces. What else do you talk about or work with in that area in the training?
Well, in the training, we go very deeply into what are the barriers to embodiment, which are not only trauma, there's other barriers to embodiment. So there's a lecture on what is embodiment. It's a very in-depth lecture with a practical component where you get to feel that in your own body. And then we have a lecture that is barriers to embodiment. And in both of those, we'll address all the different areas that make the body freeze or that make people go into those situations. We also talk very strongly in teaching philosophy how you use the method in a way that essentially gives each person access to their own experience. One of the things that we are very, very intent on, because I am a trauma therapist by background, is that there's no imposition in the teaching. So you'll see, I'm sure you heard that if you've taken a class with me, that the way it's worded and the way we introduce it, so you get a whole introduction that has everything it needs, but nothing it doesn't need. There's no imposition on what people should feel or experience or do. There's no force, and there's no pushing of edges or boundaries in any which way, so that anybody, regardless of their background, can safely do a class. And that's very, very important, because not everybody who takes these classes is a trauma therapist or a psychologist or anything like that. So there's a very, very strong emphasis on the non-impositional, very light touch. But in addition to that, I'm a huge stickler for what I call containment, which is another way of saying, how do you create an optimal space for the nervous system to relax, which I like a lot better than a safe space, because who knows what's safe for one person isn't safe for another. But one thing we can all agree on is we know what relaxes the nervous system, and we can pay close attention to the environment that we create, both virtually as well as in classrooms, that allows people to be very comfortable. And that's everything from the way you set up the class before they even get into your space, virtual and factual, to the way you end it, to the way you guide it, to the way a room is set up, to the music that is used. So we point towards all of that, even with things like music choices, where certain sounds and certain considerations can cause, trauma responses and things like that. So we go into quite a bit of depth on that in a way that it's easily usable and applicable even to somebody who isn't, highly trained as a therapist, because it's not necessary for this modality. And obviously within nonlinear, there's other modalities that are not so trauma oriented. For instance, there's an entire modality that deals with interoception, meaning the ability to feel one's inner landscape and report on that and react moment by moment to what's arising, which is an incredibly useful tool for things like boundary setting, but also for things like, let's say, sensual and sexual responsiveness, or the ability to say no, right, and things of that nature. So there's other modalities. There's a modality that deals specifically with vitality and well-being and pleasure. There's a modality that's kind of like a, let's say, loosely an embodied manifestation process, where you can either kind of do a future projection filtered through your body to see if that's even right, or fully move towards and embrace and imprint with your body that which is next. So those are all things that you learn, and then some people choose to go more into the, let's say, release, unfreeze domain, and some people choose to go more into the, let's say, pleasure and manifestation domain, and you have options there, depending on whom you teach, also your personal preferences, and so that's all spelled out in fine detail. Okay. Yes, Lisa.
Yes. Hi, I'm Lisa.
Hi,
Good to meet you.
good to meet you.
I just have a question about where to start because I'm a brand newbie. I mean, I just discovered your book. I've been devouring it. I'm about 2/3 of the way through. And because I'm the kind that says, "Oh, great, what's everything you have? And let me take everything." I showed up and this is the first thing I see, but this might not be the place for me to start. So I wanted to find out kind of as someone who's mostly interested in it for my own continuing growth.
Yeah,
But I've been leading workshop for over 30 years. I lead a lot of transformation workshops. I've trained coaches for over 25 years and do train coaches specifically in a modality that I have. And people, it is a lot of sitting in a circle and it's like, oh, let's do something for movement. So I've always wanted something to integrate, and this feels like a perfect kind of fit, I would think, getting people moving and more in their body. But anyway, you tell me, like, here I am, what do you want to do with me?
Well, obviously, I'm a bit biased because this is my baby, right? So, of all the things I've developed, and I've developed an enormous body of work over the last 25 years, I sometimes look at it and I'm like, how did this happen, right? I mean, like you say, you've been teaching for a long time. If you're in the trenches, that's what happens. And it's a very interactive process in the sense that it's a co-creative process with what's happening out there in the world. And so to me, nonlinear, of course, is my child in the sense that I'm still actively developing it, right? I'm still coming up with new modalities. I'm always polishing the scripts more and trying out new things. And I'm in this constant laboratory. So obviously you will hear from me that it's a good modality. But I'm also saying that in the context of us having trained a lot of people nowadays, and many of the people use it in their existing practices. And as I was saying earlier, we have a dentist in Europe who works only with people who have dental trauma. And for instance, right? And so she uses it very specifically when people freeze up or before they have to go on the chair and after they have a treatment and things like that. And then we have an enormous demographic of coaches, right, who use it in the way you do or will use it. And then there's people who teach it freestanding and some people who teach it in women's groups. So it's a modality that is highly useful for pretty much anyone, right? And it's quite interesting because I live very rurally. I live outside of Ojai, California, kind of in the mountains. And I've taught some of my neighbors who are like, salt of the earth, kind of rough and tumble kind of people, and they love it. Because it's non-dogmatic, it's non-religious, or it has no connotations of anything. We're very clean in the language as well, so it doesn't have tribal identifiers that turn people on or off or things like that. So it's a good modality. So I want to say though, we do these a couple of times a year. So if you want to just immerse a bit into guided sessions, that's also very much an option because I'm starting to teach regular sessions. I took the summer off, but I'm back to regular sessions. Okay. And then that way you can explore it. And the other thing that I want to say is because it's such a strong experimental training, experiential, not experimental. It is very hot here. Such an experiential training. I've never experienced anyone who's participated, meaning stepped up, did the practice, did the training, not have huge bodily and with that emotional transformations. There's people who, because we make you practice every day during the training, and you keep a little log, and that way, there's a little bit of extra incentive to kind of dive in. It's really. Yeah, I can't really put words on it. Anything I say will sound very salesy, because what can I say? But people had some really incredible changes in the way they relate to their body, to their trauma, to their partners and things like that. Because when you actually engage with your body in this way, all the body's self-healing, self-cleansing, self-regulating systems kick in. And people often also report, just general health benefits, physical benefits, and, sleep benefits and all kinds of stuff. So even if you don't know much about me or the method, you will by the end of this training. We kind of leave no stone unturned. And as you can hear, I love it so much that it's my favorite thing to kind of give to people, which, it's kind of funny because in the beginning, when my teaching partner asked me if I could do a teacher training, I was adamantly against it. It was a little bit like, my precious, it was like,
I
oh,
do
my,
understand.
yeah. But other options, just to say this to you, is if you are through the book 3/4, I'm actually for the first time in now 3 years going to also teach a Wild Woman's Intensive. That's not a teacher training. I have a women's circle teacher training as well, but that's just a purely come enjoy yourself, get with your body, do some fun practices with a bunch of other women at my house in California, get good food, dance your ass off.
When's that?
That's October 14 to 16. We just announced it last night, so it's not, it's not that known yet. And that's super small. I'm only taking 24 people since this is the very first workshop back. And there's still safety protocols and everything to be had. So those are some of your options if you don't want to study right now. But it's just also a really cool thing. Also, the other thing that I do want to say, for some people, that's kind of, it's like a gateway drug, is that once you've done one workshop, like the teacher training, you get 50% off of everything else we do in a year. And sometimes that's really fun because particularly when we teach a lot, right, you can just come along for all kinds of cool rides and all the other people, a lot of people come for a whole year for a bunch of stuff and you kind of get an immersion and then, some people move on to whatever is next in their lives, but you get like this concentrated dose, which is also quite nice.
And in the 6 hour, I think they're 6 hour days, right?
Yes.
About how much of that is movement and how much is sitting, lecture, discussion kind of thing?
It depends on the module. So in the first 2 modules, and also I wanted to say that there's 2 streams. So some people, like for instance, if you're in California, you could technically do both streams if you feel enticed to do so. Some people come for the practical stuff on the second stream sometimes, just to do more practice. So in the first 2 modules, it's a lot of experiential movement where I teach you each of the modalities, and then we'll do kind of an adjunct practice that gets you deeper into the consideration so you can learn quite a bit, and then I'll teach you again, and then there's some lectures on each day, and then there's Q&A on each day. So those are the first 2 modules. And someone was asking about trauma. That was L, right? Yes. So in the first 2 lectures, we also look at how does the body embody or not embody, in the lectures. But it's very heavy on practice. So I'd say it's like about an hour of lecture and an hour of half an hour of Q&A, right? The rest is all practice. Some of it is an interactive talk process. A lot of it is actually you doing the practice. And
is there space for like whatever process is coming up while you're doing body stuff, or we're not processing, or we're not?
Well, in nonlinear, you never process publicly or verbally so that your body can actually do what it needs to do. But if you have stuff showing up there, that can be dealt with in the Q&A. There's also specific suggestions I'll give you for processing. And then also you have some partnered work with somebody in a breakout room where there's also some time to kind of connect and speak. And there's some specific talk process at the end of which there's always a moment where, you just get to have that human moment. So there's all of that's accounted for. It's very heavy on the embodiment because most people are very heavy on the processing. So they can do that much more easily than the actually feeling and letting it wash out and letting the body, but it's all accounted for. And then in the third module, you will actually teach. You'll learn the script, you get the script, you learn the script, you practice the introductions, and you're actually teaching people. And so that means sometimes you're teaching and sometimes you are being taught, so you have more movement going. And then in those two modules, we'll also talk about teaching philosophy and containment. Like I said, we'll talk about class flow, things like that. And then in the last module, you're actually teaching. And so when you are teaching a full class, and when you're not teaching a full class, you are being taught. So once again, you get a lot of movement in. So, yeah. So that gives you some options.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Anything? All right. Well, thank you for spending some time with me. Please feel free to reach out if anything else pops up. And next sessions, if you just want to kind of dive into nonlinear again, is the 7th. So I'll start again on the 7th. And if you are signing up, then you immediately on registration get the code for all the classes to be free. So then you're not dependent on us in the office. You just have this little code that you enter on the website, and then you get all the information, the Zoom links and everything.